start to slowly open the eyes, taking your time. How you doing?
Good, glad to be here.
Good, glad to see you. Okay, how's everyone doing? Good, great, great, great. Any questions or comments about what just happened? You get how simple it is? You get the simplicity of it? It's just really just about nothing to it. As long as you got the simplicity, that's it. That's correct. If you're wondering, did I do that right? Yeah, you did it right. As long as it's simple. The only thing you can do wrong is make it complicated. You know, because, well, okay, but what if I just, lean it a little to the left, a little to the right? There was that part 6 minutes in where I was feeling really blissful and settled, and then by 11 minutes, not so much. So if I could just try to get back to that place. Once you start getting busy with that, then no, that ain't it. Okay. Then you're just swimming around on the surface. Right. So what we do is we just hang out. We float, and eventually gravity, pretty quickly actually, you may have noticed, if we let it, gravity just starts pulling us down into the deeper still waters. Most people think of meditation as, oh, the mind is, it's like this choppy surface of the ocean, all these thoughts, all these perceptions, all these feelings. If I want peace, if I want quiet, I have to flatten out all the waves. Take my, whatever this thing is, bam, 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 flatten them out, which of course doesn't work. You're just stirring up the water more. But if you just let yourself hang out, you just, gravity takes over, you start to sink. And because up here, this is the thinking mind. Thinking mind is supposed to think thoughts. Thoughts are supposed to be there. We don't have to get rid of them. If we're trying to get rid of them, we're trying to do something, create a situation that's not supposed to be. That's not what we're built for. They're supposed to be thoughts we could say in the mental field, there on the surface of the ocean, just as there's supposed to be colors in the visual field. Colors and shapes. There's supposed to be sounds in the auditory field. If someone came in here and said, gee, I could really be relaxed, I could really be chill if we just, Dean and Yaffa had painted these walls of blue instead of whatever this is, tan. Or if I could just get rid of all these shapes, all these books. All these books in the bookcase here, it keeps my mind so busy, and it's just stuff that's there. It's just part of the landscape. So whether it's sights or sounds or sensations or thoughts or feelings, doesn't matter. Because this natural tendency of the mind to go toward peace, to go toward happiness, takes over. Gravity pulls us down. Even a foot below the surface, it's quiet. We don't have to make the mind quiet. We're not going to make the mind, which is the surface, quiet. We're sinking into awareness, which is different from mind. Awareness just is. It's just the empty space within which experience happens. And its nature is silent. Its nature is empty. So we just sink down into a foot or two below the surface, and the ocean, and it's boundless like an ocean, as opposed to waves which are individual and constricted, and quiet. So As long as we got that ease, as long as we got that simplicity, we've got it. And then the experience, what actually happens moment to moment in the experience, is going to tend to be different each time. And it's not out under our control. We're not driving, we're in the passenger seat. And sometimes some sessions are going to seem, really deep and, peaceful. Oh yeah, this is what you meditate for. And sometimes it just seems more choppy and less settled. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean you did it right one time and wrong the other time. And let me try. See, there up pops the devil, right? Let me try to do it the way I did last time. Then you've lost the simplicity again. It's because what it has to do is what's being sorted out by your nervous system at that time. So sometimes it's experienced as more settled, sometimes less settled. The overall, the long-term thing is that we tend to go toward more settled. We tend to go toward, as we become more familiar with those quieter levels as we sink into awareness. More and more, okay, we know the way. Like, when the first time you drive to a new place, it like seems long, and then you keep driving there, and it just gets to be like, right, it's like that. Oh, we become more familiar. Oh yeah, here it is. You realize, and then where it really gets to be fun is when you start realizing that more and more you're walking around in that during the day. Because where's all this taking place? Right now. We're talking, we're seeing stuff. What's taking place within awareness? What's the nature of that awareness? Open, empty, free, boundless, delicious. Some of you have heard me say this, my favorite words out of all the years I spent with my old teacher, Maharishi. It's just nothing, but there's something very good about it. Right? And that nothing is with us all the time. It's awareness. When you were 5 years old, riding your new bike you got for Christmas or your birthday or something, where was that experience taking place? Within that same silent awareness. And everything's changed since then. Your body's changed, your thoughts have changed, your feelings have changed, but all the changes through everything, your first day of college, all of that has all been witnessed by this same silent awareness. It's all taken place within it. It was there in the background all along, but we kept being, going to the shiny object. We kept looking at all this stuff in the foreground because it was moving around and making a bunch of noise. So we were missing the silent background. But then something told us at some point, and not necessarily in these words, oh, there's that other thing. There's that other thing. It's that silent part, that complete within itself part, that happiness or completeness that doesn't depend on outer conditions. Somehow, some intuition is telling me that's supposed to be there, and then often it's when we get more mature, we've had more ups and downs in our lives. A lot of people, they'll come to this, after they bottomed out in some way, after there's been a crisis with a relationship or a job or health or something, or death of someone close to them, and they realize, oh, there seems like there should be a peace, there should be a place of peace that's there no matter whether you're sick or healthy, whether you're rich or poor. And there is. And only you gotta sit down and do it. You put in the time, So it's really good to practice every day, set up a time when you can sit down. It doesn't have to be long, 15 minutes, something like that. So set it up like brushing your teeth, so you don't even think about it. And it's good to start with some on-ramp activity at the beginning. So tonight we did the singing descending fifths. Any questions about that, about the descending fifths? Flintstones, and if you like that on-ramp, play around with it at home. What you want to do is find the lowest for that second note, the lower note, the lowest note that you can sing at full volume comfortably. And start with a deep breath, and then stay with that second note as long as you can without straining, with ease. And that's not only a really good settler downer, but it's really good for your voice. And then other on-ramps, you can just pay attention to your breathing, maybe breathe in and out a little more slowly and fully and deliberately than usual, and just kind of paying attention to each moment of the in, each moment of the out. Do that a few times. There's other, if you've learned pranayams in your yoga class, any of those is fine. Or just gaze at something, gaze at a flower, gaze at a spot on the floor, just something. So we're doing a little bit of something, because we've been coming from doing a lot of things. So to ease in, the on-ramp, we do a little bit of something, and then we do nothing, just rest as this open awareness that we are. So we use the on-ramp, get on it for a few minutes or something, and get into the express lane, the diamond lane, as soon as possible. Yes.
In the meditation, you used the word, when you were saying that it's like the awareness is like the screen, and it's never touched by what comes on the screen and off the screen. And you said the word nothing sticks, and I was thinking sometimes when we're in the midst of some troublesome time, or trying to get something to happen in our lives, it seems like something sticks.
Yes.
Because it's like no matter how many, a few minutes of meditation, and we think, okay, that's gone for now, and then it'll come back, and then it'll come back, and then it'll come back, because that's how our brains do things.
Right.
And the thing that struck me is that when I've been in those phases of like obsessing about something, the key thing I realize is to say, oh yeah, and last year at this time, what was I thinking about?
Right.
Not this.
Right.
So
Well,
it goes away.
Right.
And it comes back.
What was your urgent, all-important, gotta resolve this, I'll never get rid of this thought 5 months ago or
Right.
5 minutes ago?
Right. I mean, usually 5 minutes ago, if it's really profound thing, it's there.
might be.
I mean, that's the whole thing.
It
It
might
does feel like
might
it
be.
sticks.
For me, it's usually something else 5 minutes ago. I mean, you don't know what it's like in here. All this stuff going on.
Yeah.
And there's less going on than there used to be. We've been meditating for a while, and there's a tendency for the thinking process to get a little more cooled out, a little more quiet. But that's kind of incidental. And that's, again, different from people's expectation of meditation. It's not so much that, you get the waves on the surface straightened out. Some of that tends to happen, but the main thing is you're finding the silence of the water underneath it. So no matter what's going on the surface, that's there. That's there. Part of, I think, getting a clear perspective on what you were saying, that how it can seem as if it sticks, is being aware that, let's do a little experiment to make this clear. Please just move your hand back and forth slowly in front of your eyes, just a little bit slowly, so you're really, aware of this experience. Okay, now stop. Now do it 2 seconds in the past. No, can't do it? Okay, do it 2 seconds in the future. No, can't do it? Okay, so what do we learn, class? Yeah, it's always only now. And if some wise guy goes, okay, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, now I'm doing it 2 seconds in the future. No, it's now. It's now. Right. So it's not that the thought sticks, it's that we've come back to it in another now. Right. we do tend to get into habits and patterns of coming back to certain things now after now. And some of this has to do with you know, there's that section, actually this is one that I know is one of your favorites it's in that book, in Natural Meditation, all about Z.
All about what?
All about Z. Let me read this thing to you. Because, you know, the thing about writing a book is that you spend a lot, at least when I do it, I spend a lot of time getting the sentences just right, and then it's better than I can say it in real life. All about Z. There's always 360 degrees of stuff going on around us. The report of the five senses, as well as our thoughts and feelings. But of this 360 degrees, we usually pick out some segment of, let's say, 10 degrees, some object or idea, let's call it Z, and we decide that it matters more than the other 350 degrees. We invest Z with more energy than the rest, more charge, whether positive or negative, and we fix our attention on it. This is called fixation, and it happens most of the time, whether we fixate on something we think we need or on something we think we need to get rid of. When it becomes extreme or even pathological, it's called obsession. In a sense, meditation is an exercise in non-fixation. The dog barks, the bus rolls by, thoughts come and go, feelings come and go, and we don't engage with any of it. As long as we're in our meditation seat, we've decided that it doesn't matter what we experience, what we think, what we feel. Sometimes, by force of habit, we do engage for a while, and we think, geez, if only that ceiling fan would stop squeaking, then I'd be fine. Or, if only I were done with this meditation and watching the Cubs game, I'd be happy. But then we remember the instruction and let go again into the space of neutrality, the space of being okay with whatever. To discover a space of neutrality like that, a haven of okayness, of nothing lacking and nothing mattering, even for a few minutes, is a huge deal. It begins to undermine the whole mechanism of fixation. The more thoroughly we marinate in that space of freedom, the less we'll fixate on things during the rest of the day. So, the neighbor's dog barks for a few minutes, or you've got a hangnail that needs trimming, or you wish that cute girl at work would smile at you, or the kid upstairs with the new guitar won't stop playing Hotel California. Fine. You develop a more relaxed sense of humor about it all, and a mellower, more mature 360-degree big picture perspective. You can still focus sharply when necessary, but focus is a choice, an assertion of freedom. Fixation is slavery. Whether you're engrossed in the latest political horror show that's beyond your control, or you're losing sleep over your old boyfriend's crummy behavior, which he has long since forgotten. There comes a point when we're just tired of those chains, and now they're loosening up. Okay, good. What else?
Fixation and Z are identities, and aren't they more superficial identities than what we connect to when we meditate? But the reason that I want to get this or get rid of that is a validation of what I've either decided is my identity or I've grown into as part of my cultural heritage or genetics.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of that's, but it's a more superficial identity than what you connect to when you meditate.
Yeah, it can be, sometimes it's just, okay, ceiling fan, ceiling fan, ceiling fan. But actually, yes, you're right. If we look more closely at it, we have an idea of who we are. I'm the guy who's sitting in a nice, quiet room where there's not supposed to be a squeaky ceiling.
Or it could be I'm a guy who fixes stuff like that, I'm not apathetic, I get the oil out of
Yeah.
everything, so,
Yeah.
and somebody's a slacker because of that, and I'm not a slacker because it's
Yeah.
bad to be a slacker, it's good to be diligent, and
Right.
that is my identity,
Right.
therefore I've got to get rid of that fan,
Right,
and, cause it doesn't fit who I am.
right, right, exactly.
Mm.
So, actually, I really like this connection that you've made, because, I mean, that really gets us into a deeper perspective of where we're going with all this, which is that we have these ideas of who we are. We have this self, actually a bunch of them in quotation marks, who we think we are, what we think we are. And we can define it, it's defined in terms of a lot of, as you say, it could be cultural stuff and genetic stuff and family stuff
Or stuff we chose, we think by merit.
yeah, it can be, but it's like, one of my favorite examples is think of, there's a time for most people, it'll be near the last, maybe couple of years of high school or going into college years, where you try on identities. Like, oh, maybe I'm a sad poet, or maybe I'm a party bro, or maybe I'm a, whatever, I'm a good friend, right? Nothing wrong with engaging in the behavior that we describe as the behavior of a good friend, that's great. But it's a different thing to define yourself as that. So there's all of these different costumes we've tried on, and we're looking for something that fits, so we can say, that's what I am, that's who I am. And of course, we're none of those. We're the one who's trying on the different costumes. And that one is, well, it's interesting. What is it? Melody and I were talking before, she was asking me, very interesting question before we started, all these books here, what's my favorite? And, I couldn't say, but the one that leapt to mind and highly recommended is the one you can probably read from across the room. Who am I? This is a book of transcripts of talks by this incredible awakened man in the 1970s, 80s, thereabouts, in Bombay, Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, who was a cigarette salesman. He ran a little stand in Bombay selling cigarettes, and then upstairs he built above his tenement apartment in Bombay, he built a little room, and people eventually were coming from all over the world for his talks because they were so penetrating. And what he was pointing, and his whole thing was, who am I? Who am I? Who are you? You say, Dean, where are you? I say, well, I'm sitting in the chair. I'm over here in the chair. So I've defined myself as the body. But, is this the same body I had when I was 5 years old? No. We define ourselves as our thoughts. Okay? I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm a Christian, I'm a Buddhist, I'm an atheist, whatever. That's all made out of thoughts. And the interesting thing is that the structure of, let's say, a bunch of, Buddhist thoughts and the structure of a bunch of whatever, Muslim thoughts, the structures look very different, but they're made out of the same thing, which is thoughts. It's like building two different looking towers out of Legos, but the Legos are the same. And when you go to sleep at night, when you're in the state of deep sleep, what's your religion? Nothing. Because you don't have the bandwidth available to think thoughts. Right? So everyone says, oh, I want freedom, I want peace of mind. I want freedom from, whatever these sad stories are that I've been carrying around with me all my life, and I never get to put this thing down. So it seems. But you put it down for 6, 7, 8 hours every night, and you put it down every time you're parking in a tight space, because you don't have the bandwidth available to think those thoughts. You put it down thousands of times a day, and then you pick it up again. But now if we pay attention to this, we might start to ask, well, why do I keep picking it up? Right? You have choice, you have freedom. Once you recognize, oh, that's not me, it's just thoughts. So we're not the body, we're not the thoughts, we're not the feelings, but don't take my word for it, right? You investigate this on your own through, paying attention and through meditation. And in meditation, because things get quiet, it becomes very clear. It's really like, I'm sometimes clearer than others, but it's like, okay, this is really putting it under the microscope. And what we experience is, oh, these thoughts go by. They're just stuff going by. It's always changing. The experience of having a body, what makes us think we have a body? What it is experiences of the five senses. Feeling, seeing, hearing, right? Well, where are those experiences of the senses being experienced? Same place everything else is being experienced, in this awareness, which is no place. Which is no place. Because all places, all time and space is happening within the awareness. Sometimes people come, especially new people that come out of the meditation, and they go, how long was that? Did you have some sense of that? What, yeah. How long was that? You don't know. That's great. I love it.
But when you speak of the senses,
Because hold on one second. Because that how long was that? We tend to not have our usual sense of time, because time and also space just happen here on the surface. You're settling down into here, where because another great teacher whose books are up here someplace, Rupert Spira, said, time is what eternity looks like when it's filtered through the mind. Right? Right? So eternity is not long, millions of years. Eternity has nothing to do with time. Eternity is what we're sitting in right now. Right? And more as you experience, and those of you who've been practicing for a while, you may not have phrased it like this, but you may have noticed the experience. More and more there's that sense of, because more and more you're resting in awareness rather than just resting in your thoughts. And so a feature of that is, I'm resting in eternity. One of my very favorite little poems from William Blake. And actually this ties together the whole, I need this or I need to get rid of that. And Blake, he uses this image, you see that it's sort of like butterflies. He never says it, but it's something like butterflies or gossamer angels or something like that. He says, he who binds to himself a joy does the winged life destroy. Right? Okay, these joys are just flying by. Ooh, I like that. You try to bind to yourself, you try to hold on to it, and there's, oh no, I crushed the butterfly. Because it's fragile, it's delicate. So he who binds to himself a joy does the winged life destroy. So you say, okay, well then what do? Then do I have to become a monk? And to just not engage with the joys of the world because I'm gonna crush them? No, there's another way, which is the other two lines of the poem. So he who binds to himself a joy does the winged life destroy. But he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise.
oh,
Yeah! Yeah, that's like the best thing ever. Yeah, that's it. That's the whole prescription right there. You kiss the joy as it flies, living in eternity. That image, eternity's sunrise. It's like always that perpetual sunrise right here. Yep, the light is breaking. That, that freshness of sunrise, how the air smells then. There's a word for it, for that freshness actually in India. It's called Nabaswan Vayu. Vayu is the breeze. And supposedly the Nabaswan Vayu, which comes in the last bit, the last time just before the sunrise and just as the sun starts to rise. They say that that's what like re-enlivens the awareness of all the beings as they're sleeping, all the people and animals and plants. And if the Navaswan Vayu didn't blow through, none of us would be able to wake up, something like that. So you kiss it as it flies, you enjoy it, and now it's the next moment. What now? Now it's the next pulsing of this eternity. Good. Oh, so we're supposed to talk about Ayurveda, right? So, last week, Yafa and I went out. We spent pretty much a week at the Ayurvedic Institute. It's in Albuquerque, New Mexico. 10 months ago, last March or April, we did the same thing at the Ayurvedic Center of Vermont. So Ayurveda is the ancient traditional health science of India. Its roots are very connected to the same roots of the teachings of meditation and the word Veda means knowledge or science. Like so many words in Sanskrit, it has cognates, the similar connected, descended words in English and other Western languages. So Veda is connected with, like, what is it in Latin? Videre, to see, to see. In English we have video, vision. So it's not just, so right there is the hint that real knowledge, real science is not just a bunch of ideas, it's seeing, actual seeing. And Ayu means life. So Ayurveda literally is the science of life. And hundreds of years ago, there were these Ayurvedic sages that made these deep explorations of what's going on in the human body, how it works. And they came up with a model, ways of talking about this, that's based on people's constitutions. That basically, they talked about the 5 elements in the body, earth, water, fire, air, and space. And then how the combinations of those give rise to all the activities within the body. And again, it's a model, it's a metaphor. And to different, and then depending on how the elements are more in balance or out of balance, you can make people with different kinds of constitutions. Like some people who are very fiery, and some people who are airheads, some people who are earthy, and so forth. And then there's a tendency, if the people get too out of balance, to get certain illnesses which are characteristic, like the fiery type, which in Ayurveda is called the Pitta constitution. There's certain kind of typical Pitta ailments, which would be high blood pressure and skin rashes and all these like intense, high intensity, high fire kinds of things. So what Ayurveda does is focusing less on, okay, let's try to cure this set of symptoms, but let's balance the constitution. So a lot of this is done through diet, and you get a list, okay, with your constitution, better to favor this food and this food and this food, better to avoid or reduce this food and this food. And then a lot of it can be done through even things like the colors that you wear. My late first wife, this was actually our first brush with Ayurveda. She developed this swelling around her throat. It was right at the end of winter. And we had just heard about Dr. Vasant Lad, who's the founder of the Ayurvedic Institute, the guy who essentially brought these teachings to the West. And this was around 1984, 85. And it was a lot easier to get hold of him then. So she found out the phone number, sent him a little photo of her face so he could kind of tune in, made a phone date, and he got on the phone with her and he said, well, looking at you with the inner eye, we see that you've got a cold nodule on your thyroid. It's benign, nothing to worry about. I'll send you some herbs that'll help reduce the swelling. And she said, well, that sounds great, but I'm still a little nervous. I'm thinking about going to see the Western doctors to confirm the diagnosis. He said, oh yeah, diagnosis, the Western doctors are fine. Treatment, sometimes you want to, be a little careful. So she then proceeds to go through 6 months of being sent from one doctor to another, one needle biopsy, another needle biopsy, inconclusive. She goes through 6 months of this, and finally they sit her down and say, okay, we figured it out. It's a cold nodule on your thyroid. It's benign. Oh, and the one other thing, right, that Dr. Lod said to her on the phone was, this is a pitta condition. And Maggie was pretty pitta. Which, by the way, doesn't just mean, oh, she was fiery and, could get, have a temper. She had some of that. But also pitta tends to be like shiny, charismatic. She'd been a fashion model and she was like this very big personality. So he told her, this is a pitta condition. Don't wear anything with fiery colors, right? Reds, yellows, oranges, near your throat. Well, I told you this was at the end of winter. At the beginning of winter, someone had given her this fire engine red scarf, which she loved so much she'd been wearing it like indoors and outdoors, day and night. Right.
But what is the possible mechanism of a red scarf producing a thyroid
No,
hormone?
I don't know.
supernatural.
Well, I mean, you can not.
Okay.
To my understanding, Kathy, nothing is supernatural. But some things may access
No.
laws of nature that are
That's what I
higher
mean.
or
No,
some.
that's
Yeah,
what
I know.
meant.
I know. That's
what I
always
meant,
what
yeah.
people mean. Yeah. It's
And
but we just want to be.
nature- Natural science can't explain. Or
Yes,
science.
as it
science
as it is
doesn't
now.
know it, yeah.
Right. Someone once asked Maharishi one time was talking about some of this stuff we might consider kind of far out or woo-woo, and Maharishi had always emphasized, no, that we're science, and he actually had the equivalent of a master's degree in physics. And someone said to him one day, Maharishi, you're talking about all this far out stuff. You emphasize it's all supposed to be science, and Maharishi said, this is science on my level.
Yeah.
To an Aborigine living somewhere in Borneo, he sees a jet fly overhead. To him, that's magical. That's
Yeah.
supernatural. Just because he's not familiar with the laws of physics
Well,
that are
even
involved there.
The human race, a long time, they thought thunder was horses galloping
Yeah.
in the heavens or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
and that was the explanation. And
Yeah. So
today we'd say that's ridiculous.
yeah. So we always know there's, as you say, there's some mechanism. We just might not know what it is yet. And that's a sample. Maggie's story is a small sample. It's only one data point. But then if you get 1,000 data points like that, then you start to. Actually, a couple of months after her experience, Dr. Lod came to New York to do some consultation. So I went and had a consultation with him. And I had this condition in my eye, ocular migraine, where my vision. And I still get it once in a great while now, where my vision goes like all psychedelic pinwheels, and actually I can go completely blind in this eye. It's kept me from going to Vietnam, by the way. And I'd had it from the age of 18 to when I had this consult with Dr. Lod, I was about 35, and I'd been having it every 2.5 weeks, like clockwork. And I had the consult, he told me, okay, he pointed to the yes and no list on my diet. He said, eat this, don't eat this. So I went really strict on the diet, stopped immediately. Immediately after like 17, 18 years. And then I did that for, a couple of months. One night we were in an Italian restaurant with my mom, and she ordered the spumoni ball for dessert. And she could only eat half of it. She said, here, Dean, you finish it. Oh God, it looks so good. Okay, I can't resist. And I ate this thing. As we're walking out the door of the restaurant, my eye happens.
Wow.
So, you get enough of these experiences, you start to wonder. In fact, more recently, I got another, all this stuff happens to my right eye for some reason. I developed something called a macular pucker. Macular pucker. And this is the thing where they show you the test looks like a piece of graph paper, and if the lines look wavy instead of straight, you have a macular pucker. Okay, and the retina specialist diagnosed that thing about a year before we went to Vermont for our treatment for a week. And then I came back, and then a few days later it was time for my follow-up appointment with the retina guy. So I go in, he takes the photos, he blows them up on the computer, he looks at the screen. Turns to me, he says, "Have you had eye surgery since I saw you last?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, this pretty much only gets worse with people. Yours has gotten better. Have you done anything?" Well, it so happens we had this treatment while we were there, and we just had it last week as well, where you're lying on a table, they built a little moat of like dough around your eye, and they pour warm ghee into it. Ghee is clarified butter.
Wow.
Ghee, clarified butter.
Butter.
It's fantastic.
Well,
Into
you,
your
well, you,
eyeball,
you
though?
keep your
Yeah.
eye closed
Oh,
when
you
they
keep-
pour it, and then you
okay.
open your eye.
Okay.
You open
And
your
so-
eye and they tell you, okay, look up and down, left and right, roll around in circles.
Meanwhile, it's in the ghee. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
your
in
eye is
your
being
eye.
big, and you're lying there for, I don't know, 45 minutes or something.
It's
in
cool.
the ghee. And then the
It
other,
doesn't
and
hurt
then,
at all. I mean, it's just
no, it feels,
warm.
Right,
and-
it's
it
not
feels
hot.
great,
It's
you
not-
know, you think this feels good?
Yeah,
Imagine
yeah.
having warm butter on your eye. It's fantastic. And and I called up Allison, the director of the Vermont Ayurvedic Center of Vermont, after the retina guy told me this, and I told her, and she said, "Oh yeah, we hear stuff like that all the time." So the main thing you get is there's a daily routine that's just pretty, to some degree it's customized for people, but there's certain things that pretty much it happens to everyone. The first thing is called Abhyanga. You're lying on a massage table on your back, and you get this incredible synchronized two-person massage.
4 hands.
Okay, yeah, 4 hands, yeah, Kathy's had it in India. And they're using all this, they use like buckets of oil, because it's not like deep Swedish massage, it's this more subtle, they're working the marma points, which are kind of like acupuncture points, and they're moving the toxins toward your center, toward your digestive system, and so then they can be eliminated. And I think the synchrony of the left and right, part of that has to do with the fact that, there's the cross thing, so the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere of the brain are experiencing that, and it tends to bring your 2 cerebral hemispheres into harmony, into more resonant functioning, which is one of the things EEG research has shown happens in meditation. This is one of the reasons why walking is such a good thing, because the right hand swings out with the left foot and vice versa. And I know when I'm writing a book, I have to get up and pace. I have to walk, and then everything starts to flow.
So after that.
Yeah, so there's the Abhyanga, then and also a few things go on during that where they're pouring oil in your ears, and there's some herbalized stuff. You sniff up your nose. It's really great. And then they put you in a steam box. Your head is sticking out of your body from the neck down. You're in the steam box, and they're steaming you out. And again, this is all cleansing, purifying. And then you towel off, and then actually in the announcement for tonight's session that I sent out, there was a picture of this next thing. It's called Shirodhara. And again, you're lying on the table on your back, and there's this pot above you with a little hole in it, and it drizzles warm oil back and forth on your forehead, centering on your pineal gland. And then this is going on for, 45 minutes or something. And it's very meditative, very soothing, and You know, I don't know all the explanations, all the mechanisms here, but whatever it is, it's good stuff.
Well, that's supposed to
But
be for
this
the
is-
nervous system to
Yeah.
calm.
Yeah, yeah, very soothing and kind of rejuvenating to the nervous system.
But so everyone who goes for the treatment kinda gets what you're
Pretty,
saying.
pretty
those
much,
three
yes.
things,
Then
yeah.
there might be like, if you had an ailment,
Yes,
you could say, well, I have arthritis in my
yeah,
knee.
and,
I don't-
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah.
has start off with a consult at the beginning,
Oh,
so that
okay.
through the week, everything is,
That's
you know,
interesting.
And you have a
Uh,
consult every day also to kind of track how you're doing
Right.
and any adjustments and,
Hmm.
yeah.
you know, and then they send you home with, you know, I've got an herbal formula to take after meals, which is different from Yafa's, and yeah, and so, yeah, it's good stuff.
So both places were good, the Vermont
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
actually, the
Albuquerque?
people in Vermont were all trained by Dr. Laud.
Oh, okay.
So they really do things in the same, and Dr. Laud's really the gold standard on this stuff. In fact,
And he's in Albuquerque.
Yeah,
yeah, actually,
Half
he
the year.
divides,
Oh, he goes, okay.
he divides his time between Albuquerque and India. Right now, he's in India. If you're interested, there's an excellent film you can find online called The Doctor from India.
Hmm.
The Doctor from India, kids. And actually, we found it on YouTube. You know, you pay $3 to watch or something to watch it on YouTube, and it's really good. It's an hour and a half something, and it tells his whole story. And you see him at his clinic in India where he treats people for free because you know they don't have money. And you get the whole story of how this evolved and how his life, and you just see what a wonderful person he is. That you know, actually, a lovely thing that happened, you know, there's a mantra that is known as the healing mantra in India. Diane, you remember at the Threshold Choir
Right.
Christmas party, I shared the mantra, which is Hari Om. And we sang it to one traditional melody. You can also traditionally just chant it. So at the very beginning of the treatment, before the abhyanga, the forehanded massage, you're lying there, and the two practitioners are on either side of the table, and each one takes one of your hands, and then you're invited to just listen, just let this wash over you, or chant it along with them. You know, and you're going, Hari Om. And you do that 3 times. And you know, how great would it be if, like, your Western doctors, right? Instead of they coming in with the clipboard or that, these days it's the tablet computer. Sometimes they barely look up and see you. You know, you're just a bunch of data points. Where's the being? Where's the aware? Right? And if they did that, cause you know, doing that, and of course I'm chanting along with them, and it's just like 3 of us were like melting through the medium of the sound, melting into one thing, and that's melting into the, you know, into the sky, into the universe. Okay, now that's the context to do whatever you're gonna do. You know, that might be more important than any of the, okay, we massage this way, or you take this, or whatever. Good. What else? Oh, it's 9 o'clock. Okay. So, our next session will be 2 weeks from tonight, which is 21 and 14 is 35, February 4th. Okay. As always, you'll get a note, an email the previous Friday. And
Our day long.
oh yes, so our day-long silent retreat. There are spaces available. It is February 1st, Saturday. Originally it was Sunday the 2nd, then I found out that's Super Bowl Sunday. So it's Saturday, February 1st. It goes from 10:30 in the AM to 5:30 in the PM. And this is a chance to just really marinate. We have several sessions of guided meditation and several discussions, and the discussion topic is the Heart Sutra. which is one of the key documents of the Mahayana Buddhist way of talking about this, this ultimate reality. And it's famous, the Heart Sutra is famous for being concise. It's like one page. Most of some of these sutras go on for hundreds or thousands of pages. It's one page, and one of my Buddhist teachers referred to this as the Cliff Notes of Enlightenment.
The Cliff Notes of what?
The Cliff Notes of Enlightenment.
Oh.
So we'll be going through that, and there's a particular mantra associated with it. We'll be doing some chanting of that mantra, and it'll be, and the rest of the time outside of the sessions, you're in silence, so you don't have to have the usual yak, yak, yak. You know, those of you who've done these retreats, you know, it's really good. You really feel by the end that, oh, okay, something significant has happened here. So that's Saturday, February 1st. Space is available. Talk to me or Yafa if you're interested in signing up. Friends out in YouTube land. This Friday and Saturday, I'm teaching in Cedar Park, Texas, just outside of Austin. Friday night at the Shridu Sai Baba Temple, I'm giving a 2-hour natural meditation workshop. And then Saturday, Cedar Park Recreation Center, a day-long retreat like this on another topic. What's my topic? Living the Meditator's Life. Okay, so all the info is on my website, deanslider.com or deanwords.com on the schedule page. And then in February, it's the 23rd, I think, day-long retreat in West Orange, New Jersey. Okay, so may all beings swiftly realize their own true nature, pure, simple, open, empty, free, perfect awareness like open space, the real happiness they've been seeking in everywhere but right here. May all beings swiftly realize that happiness, and thus may peace spontaneously prevail throughout the universe. And if you know it, the traditional Sanskrit for that wish. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino